Now we're going to move to the Middle East because a British cargo ship has been attacked off the coast of Qatar as the Trump administration waits for Iran's response to their latest peace or negotiation proposal.
This, of course, as Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff meet with Qatar's prime ministers.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst is live in Tel Aviv with the very latest. Good morning, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Another busy weekend in the region. A cargo ship off the coast of Qatar was attacked this morning. An unknown projectile hit the vessel that was about 23 nautical miles northeast of Doha, according to the UK Maritime Agency. The explosion caused a small fire that is now under control, according to reports. The incident highlights the latest in a series of events in the Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz that show Iran is testing the fragile ceasefire.
From our perspective, a naval blockade is considered a military act, and a military act receives a military response. Let them understand this. From now on, they should assign several additional escorts to their destroyers so that if one of them starts sinking, they can at least rescue and evacuate their naval forces.
While the region waits to see how Iran will respond to the latest U.S. proposal to end the war, President Trump shared a series of AI images overnight depicting Iran's navy at the bottom of the sea. President Trump was asked over the weekend about the expected Iranian response, saying this.
Do you think they're slow-rolling it? Do you think they're intentionally slow-rolling the process?
We'll find out soon enough.
We also know there are reports this morning in Kuwait about Iranian drones over the country's airspace, another indication Iran is continuing their attacks against Gulf countries. Guys?
So Trey, we heard Friday night that we may get an indication from Iran. That obviously hasn't happened. It didn't come yesterday. You alluded to the president there in your report. But what's our timeline? Do we think that there may be some sort of signal from Iran today, tomorrow, this week, before the president goes to China?
Yeah, the Iranian response is expected any day. Both President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio have indicated that Iran is expected to respond soon to the U.S. memorandum, a 14-point plan that would lead to intense negotiations to end the war. President Trump has been very clear, though. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and they cannot have a military nuclear program. And that is drawn out in this agreement that the Iranians either have to sign, according to President Trump, or the bombing campaign against their country will resume. And so there are still tense moments across the region because not only the United States, but also the country of Israel remains on high alert, understanding that if a deal isn't reached, we're probably looking at a scenario where the United States and Israel resume to a bombing campaign against Iran.
Can I just ask you this, Trey, really quickly? Obviously, here domestically, there is an inertia toward finding some sort of a solution to this. I'm curious what your experience has been in Israel. Do you get the same sense that they want hostilities to end, or is your sense that the government there in particular wants to keep this going as long as it takes to squelch this regime completely?
I've been talking with Israeli officials who indicate that Israel wants a deal, but they want the right deal. They want a deal that would ultimately ensure that Iran cannot threaten their country with a nuclear bomb. But also you have other issues on the table that are concerning to Israel, and this is something that Israeli officials are watching very closely. It's not just the nuclear program the Israelis are concerned about. They're also concerned about Iran's expanding ballistic missile program that we saw on display earlier this year during Operation Epic Fury, soaring through the skies of this country and killing nearly 24 people. Also, Iran's support of regional proxies like Hamas, the Houthis in Yemen, and also Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. And so this is a multifaceted issue for the Israelis, and while they are hopeful about the possibility of a negotiated settlement that would ensure their country is not going to come under future attack from Iran, they're also prepared for the possibility that this negotiation doesn't happen. We should also note, reports indicate over the weekend that the Qatari Prime Minister was in Miami, meeting with Secretary of State Rubio and Special Envoy Witkoff to try and determine if there are other things that can be done to push this agreement across the finish line. But again, if that doesn't happen, we are looking at a scenario where likely there will be more military activity across the region.
Yeah, well, that, of course, Trey, is the complication of going into a war like this with a partner, because just naturally you're going to have different goals. President Trump, of course, wants to do, as you said, make sure that they don't have a nuclear weapon, but he also has domestic issues he needs to take care of ahead of the midterm election, which is clearly very important. And then you have Israel, who has much longer-term goals, and some people have some sources I've had have said that they have killed more Iranian leaders than probably we should have in terms of leaving hardliners in place and having killed some moderates, which makes it more difficult to negotiate. So there's that complication. I want to talk about another complication, which is China. So we have this trip coming up with China, and the president wants to be as strong as possible going into this visit. Here is Secretary Rubio talking about China's relationship with Iran. Watch.
I'm not here to speak on behalf of what's in the best interest of China, but it's obvious. China is an export-driven economy. That means they depend on other countries to buy from them. Well, you can't buy from them if you can't ship it there, and you can't buy from them if your economy is being destroyed by what Iran is doing. So it is in China's interest that Iran stop closing the straits. It's harming China as well.
So where is China on this? They're clearly an ally with Iran, but they're getting hurt by this as well because of the oil.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, when we look at the Chinese, it's a very important week for President Trump. He's headed to Beijing for that state visit later this week. And when we look at the numbers, this is very important. The Chinese import more than 1 million barrels of Iranian crude oil each and every day. They account for around 80 to even upwards of 90% of their crude oil imports coming from Iran. And so this is certainly going to be a topic of conversation for President Trump when he meets with Xi Jinping, but also for Europeans. And the president has been very clear. It's not just the Chinese. It is countries around the world that rely on the Strait of Hormuz to use not only Iranian oil, but also many of the exports that go through this critical waterway, around 20% of the world's global energy supply. And the United States doesn't rely as heavily on the Strait to have this crude oil. And they have other places, Texas, Louisiana, and the ability to use domestic crude oil production. And so it raises real questions about if European counterparts are going to look at this visit and what comes out of these conversations between President Trump and his Chinese counterpart about getting more involved in ensuring that this critical waterway is secure. Because President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio have been very clear. The United States isn't going to indefinitely be the body that is basically providing security for this waterway. And despite the fact that we saw those U.S. strikes late last week, the United States is going to look to other countries around the world who use the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf to more directly get involved in this effort to ensure that the Iranians are not threatening the global energy trade.
Good insight there.
Great
Trey
stuff.
Yingst, live in Tel Aviv. Trey, thank you very much.
Yes.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.